Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the first day of May 2019. Happy Beltana or Beltane, however you like to pronounce it, or Happy May Day, whatever your persuasion. One is about new beginnings, and so we begin a new month, and we'll see what happens, won't we? Yesterday, or I should say Monday, this day's Wednesday, the cards were talking about balancing dark and light. We had an 11 energy that day, so some illumination. He was our Rune, so spiritual warrior within. And trust me, you kind of have to be the spiritual warrior within to balance dark and light sometimes. You know, balancing spirit with ego. Sometimes the ego doesn't like to let go of the power, does it? And then yesterday, what the cards I think were describing was the end of one cycle, and that was depicted in the King of Wands. And then we had the moon in there, and then we had the Four of Wands. So there we have some balanced energy exchange. So maybe we're moving away from something authoritarian or something self-oriented and moving into a more service to others focus. The rune was, of course, Vunyo, so I thought that really reinforced that idea. So we'll see what we get today, though. Last week, I'm going to start doing it this way, where I'm going to start looking at and keep track and talk about what has gone on so far during the week. Because last week's cards were so, I mean, they really showed a progression of letting go of things that no longer serve us, letting go of illusion in particular, understanding that maybe we've been sold a bill of goods that just isn't true, and we need to wake up. And so I just thought it was such a powerful week, you know, that maybe we need to start looking at it this way and paying attention to. I'm just going to keep a running list here on the side of the computer screen here, and just so we can kind of get a sense of continuity, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it seems like maybe that it's important that we do that. Just given last week's cards, they just seem to all progress one after the other. So I don't know. I'm going to try that and see how that goes. Anyhow, if this is your first time here, welcome. If you've come back, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You have no idea. Anyhow, if you haven't checked out the blog yet, over at imsteppingaside.com, it's called Stepping Aside, and I'd love you to check that out. The geomancy reading for the month is up, as is the moon information for Aries, and it's a little more than just that. So, you know, a little magical stuff, all of that in there, but it's more geared toward, you know, witchcraft and things like that. It basically contains information in there that a witch would find helpful if he or she is planning a spell or something. So anyhow, I kind of take a little bit different focus, although I do look at aspects and things like that. So, you know. But I did that, and I did, again, the geomancy one. I've not done the tarot reading for the month yet. I'm going to do that today, I think. It looks like it, because I got ahead of the game yesterday with all of my transplants and stuff I was doing yesterday. So I'll probably write that up today. I have to do something because Attorney General Barr is in front of a Senate committee. And I got back from the walk, and I didn't come in right away. I went ahead and I watered some things because I didn't want to have that. I always feel that pressure. I have to get back out, you know. I have seeds that I planted, and I need to keep them moist. And so I don't like to wait too long. And if I do it after this, I'm kind of waiting too long. So I decided to just go ahead and do that before I got started this morning. And I got in, you know, and I turned the TV on just real quick, and because I couldn't remember when he would be testifying. Sure enough, and I heard only, oh gosh, I don't even think 30 seconds of it. I had to turn it off. I called, my husband was still outside watering, and I called him. I said, hey, that's on. And so we have direct TV. And one of the cool things about that is that you can watch it on your iPad. If you have the TV, if you have the satellite dish, you can also have that as well. And so he's back in the bedroom. watching it on the iPad because, quite frankly, I just don't think I'm going to be able to. It's like his whole essence is obstruction. I mean, have you ever known people like that? I have. I mean, unfortunately, I've known a lot of people like that. They're constantly in this obstruction mode. They are not going to give an inch on anything. They're not going to tell you the truth because that would be giving an inch. It's just too much for them, and so they do everything to stop everything. There's no flow coming out of them. Okay, they're literally bound up inside even, and they don't even realize it, that's why they're doing that. But they don't let anything get anywhere unless they control it. And so that's I can't deal with it. Triggers me. I'm a survivor. It triggers me. So I can't watch this today. I'll let my husband. So if you hear any, ranting and raving and vulgarity, hopefully you won't, because he's in the bedroom and we do have an understanding, but typically he'll scream at the TV. So anyway, and it's not good. So anyhow, hopefully you won't hear any of that. But if you do, he's 65. I mean, he's a veteran. This is all making him nuts. The whole bone spur thing. I mean, come on. That was typical back then. They buy your way out of going to Vietnam. Buy your way out of the draft. My husband, he enlisted. He was 18 and his number was coming up, and he went in with a friend whose number was also coming up. They do it in groups. And so they knew that it was happening for them. So they went ahead and they enlisted, and 3 weeks later, the draft ended. They're like, well, and they're like, no, you're in, bud. This is it. So, yeah. It's a different mindset, I guess, You even had Creedence Clearwater Revival. They wrote a song about it called Fortunate Son. If you ever listen to the words, just go or go Google them, read the words. They'll describe right there what I'm talking about. Well, everyone else had to go or enlisted. Were true patriots, They didn't have their daddy buy their way out. I even read that JFK enlisted and lied because I think, gosh, I want to say he had Addison's disease or he had something. Anyway, it's very painful. And he lied about it. So he wanted to go fight. He wanted to join the Navy. And so, he could have done anything, right? Could have gotten out of it. Oh, no, not him. Just like John McCain. Oh, no, they went. It's the measure of a man. It's that expression or the character of the man, or but I like I actually like the expression measure of the man better. Let's get started and draw the first card. Well, we have the Two of Pentacles. I guess we're back to that. There were a few weeks there. You mostly during the shutdown, during that time, where that's all I was drawing was mostly Pentacles. So clearly, our practical matters were of concern. Our security, our finances, money, home, all of that were of concern. I need to put this down so I can use both hands here. I need to show you something. Now, here we have the Two of Pentacles, and we see a lemniscate. Basically, this is what happens in our lives. It's never ending, right? But here he's going to be juggling, isn't he? He's juggling something. He's juggling maybe different issues at home. Maybe something is happening finance-wise. He's maybe got to make some decisions about that. It was about decision-making. Standing on one foot. So either he's trying to, in a weird way, give extra support to this lower one by holding the foot up, maybe trying to balance on one foot. maybe it's indicative that maybe I can't do this backwards, that this is more important, maybe this is more heavily weighted, or with this being lower, maybe it's more heavily weighted in his mind. But you can look back there, you see the water, it's rolling, the waves are rolling, you see the ship out there. These cards are rarely, even though they define particular suits, and in this case, Pentacles is about the earth element, or again, practical matters, our physical form on earth. But here you also see water, and it actually figures prominently. So there's an emotional component to this decision that he's making. And clearly, anything to do with our financial security, there's going to be an emotional component, isn't it? Because we're going to be afraid oftentimes. Am I going to make the right decision? Is it going to be beneficial to my family or to my life? Or is it going to cause me more harm than what I realize, you know? So he's having to really make a decision here. And it's almost like he's trying to juggle two responsibilities at once. And so he's trying to figure out, okay, you know, what do I take care of first? Let's do another card here. And ultimately, you know, if you haven't been here before, what I do, instead of laying out 3 cards in a row, I do them randomly. And so I will pull a card, talk about it, and then I'll do another card and talk about it. And I like the random nature of that. For me, I just want everything to be really, really random. So in any event, I'm not going to do 3 cards in a row like in a 3 card set would be. Let's do the second card. Oh, and the other thing I do is I count 13 and I take the 13th card. It's just my process. You don't have to do that. I need to set the cards down again. Okay. Mostly because these cards are getting bent. So we have the 8 of Wands. And here we have swift movement, don't we? A lot of things coming in on us. Again, we're juggling. We're already juggling. And here, all of a sudden, most of these wands now, they're in balance, aren't they? They're all pretty much at the same length. You've got a couple here in the middle, though. This one isn't quite as far, and this one isn't quite as far. So, you know, you've got a couple of them there that are kind of lagging behind, but the rest of them, you know, this is really in our face. A lot of things, a lot of will. Wands is about will. It's the fire element. So we start out with, you know, juggling our responsibilities and having to make a decision about what that all is, and maybe feeling a little emotional about it. And then all of a sudden, you know, we see this swift movement of the 8 and all of this stuff coming in at us. So maybe there's more than just, you know, maybe the decision involves more than just juggling two levels of responsibility here. And so far, numerologically, we're at a 1 energy, so new beginnings. So obviously there's some direction. You see that in the 8. There's directionality in that. Definitely motion in the 2, motion in the 8. Something's clearly happening. But it has to do with our physical concerns, our earthly concerns, finances, structure, home, family, whatever the foundational aspects of our life are. Work, maybe, employment. Maybe you're looking for another job. Maybe things are just too much at this other job. You're looking for another job and you've narrowed it down to 2 choices, maybe. So the 8 may be describing an existing situation that then the 2 is going to try and do something about. Just a lot coming in on us, maybe today. It's like you're trying to make a decision, but all this energy is coming at you. It's like, stop. Let's do another card. Well, there's some change involved. Yeah, I'm thinking that the 2 belongs at the end. And that's the other thing, you know, don't be afraid to move your cards around in any kind of a reading, really. But here we have the 5 of Swords. So we've got pentacles, we've got earth, we've got wands, we've got fire, and we've got air. Clearly, there was an argument of some kind. You got the sketchy brown clouds, the sea behind, again, that's emotions. Again, we're looking at more than one element in these cards. It's the suit of swords, and that's air, but we've got water behind there, so we've got some emotion going on. You got one guy who doesn't seem like a very nice person, really. He seems pretty happy. He's at the loss of these other two guys. He's picking up the swords. Maybe he won the argument. I think we're going to put the 5 after the 8. So something's changed. Okay, let's go with the 8 of Wands first. So a lot of will. Okay, a lot of active energy going on. It all seems to be going in the same direction. So you could be on the receiving end of some stuff today, or maybe you have been. That's not very comfortable. Maybe things are not in balance in your life. Maybe you feel some burden here by whatever's happening. So maybe a lot of stuff coming in on you. If it's not coming from people, it could just be a lot of priorities, that are basically coming due all at the same moment. Kind of like out in my garden where it's like everything's got to get done at once and you really don't know what to do, right? But in this case, it feels like pressure to me. And then here, maybe the pressure broke out into an argument. Either way, you're looking at emotions here, particularly not so much. There is a little bit of water here. I mean, you see water. There's a water that separates the home on the hill from whatever this is that's going on here with the 8. But you can see the water down there that's sort of like a separator. So whatever is happening at home is separate from whatever's happening out here. Maybe. And then we come to the 5, don't we? Where something has really, really changed. Something is broken. Okay, something is really broken. And now we're going to have to make a decision about that. And again, emotions involved. But whatever's going on here, that's affecting our foundation. So even though you can see that little river or creek or whatever that's separating the house on the hill from whatever this dynamic energy that's happening here, whatever that's about. It either provided the energy for the 5 of Swords and this argument that is clearly broken out, this conflict that's broken out. Maybe we just had enough. I'm just not sure that the guy in the 2 of Pentacles is the guy holding the swords, picking them up. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that he's one of these other 2 guys. That's how it feels to me. So right now we've got, let's see, 4 and 2 is 6. So there's a 6 energy here. That's higher self. You know what? I'm going to do a 4th card. I don't think we really, and I don't think the rune is going to be, I mean, the rune's going to tie it together, I'm sure, but I don't think that it's going to be our fourth piece here. I think that it's going to be the 5th in honor of change. And we'll do, and since it's about structure, let's do the 4th card. So something's happening. So 8 is the active presence. 5 is where we're going to argue about it, and some change is going to happen. Then we're going to make a decision, but maybe not yet. Well, the Page of Pentacles, let's move the 2 to the end. Now, pages are about, Well, they're about messages, youthful figures. Sometimes they're known as the princess in other decks. Otherwise, they're known as the page. So they're there to give a message. Maybe they're a student, but they're the youthful person in the court. You'll have the page, then you'll have the knight or the prince, and then you'll have the queen, and then the king. And so you see a progression in age there, don't you? You also see a progression in responsibility. The page is more about being a student and about learning and about gathering it all together to then go become the knight, right? We're going to gather our knowledge together. We're going to spend that time in study. And then when we're ready, we're going to go out and we're going to make our fortune. And that's where the knight comes into play. You're going to take all of that studiousness and you're going to, you're going to express it out into the world, what it is you've learned. But here, if this were the Page of Swords, I would say there was a message that came in. Still maybe a message, but having to do with our structure, our finances, our home life, work, our primary structure, our earthly structure. So we had a lot going on. Maybe an argument broke out, maybe some conflict, something new has come about, maybe a new direction to go that could better support us, maybe. And then here we are. We're going to have to do a little bit of juggling to figure out what that's going to be. I realize that's pretty vague, but I'm just not exactly sure. This could be anything. Whatever's going on in our lives, there just could be a lot of stuff coming in on us, and maybe we're trying to work it out with other people. If this is not just an individual decision that we're making or an individual thing we're experiencing, I mean, there's a lot going on. So likely there's more than one person involved here. So maybe we're trying to make some decisions at home and we're arguing with the people. Maybe you and your spouse are arguing, or if you have roommates, maybe you and your roommates are arguing about things that need to be done, vis-a-vis the home. Maybe your kids aren't pulling their weight and doing their own chores and taking care of cleaning up their rooms, or maybe you've assigned them tasks to do outside, and they're not doing it, or maybe the husband's not doing somebody maybe isn't pulling their weight, maybe. And so maybe all of this stuff is on us and we're not getting any help, maybe. I just don't think I would want to be any of these three individuals in the Five of Swords. I wouldn't want to be the guy that seems victorious because I don't like the look on his face. And the other two are just bereft. One is even holding his head. The other one looks covered in blood, although it could simply be his attire. So I don't know, but he looks like he's bloodied. But here we have Manaz. And Manaz is the 20th rune of the Elder Futhark. So again, a 2 energy. But what you see there, if you're familiar with the Elder Futhark, you see Vunyo, forward and reverse. You see, in other words, it looks like a P here and a P there, the letter P. Well, that's Vunyo from yesterday. You also see an X in the middle. That's Gebo, that's balanced energy exchange. You also see Dagaz, which is the 23rd rune of the Elder Futhark with an energy of 5, or change. That is a new day or enlightenment, the end of one phase and the beginning of another. And in a sense, that's what you have here, don't you? With the lemniscate. Although we do this, we also do this, don't we? With energy and with flow. So it can mean ever flowing, which, cycles are ever flowing. But then there's also the idea that there's a barrier or a break between one and the other. That's kind of what it looked like here in the 8. But with home in the background. Yeah, it's almost like this energy is happening against the backdrop of our foundation. So something is stirring things up with respect to home, whether it's in our job or something happening around the home or anything to do with practical earthly concerns. Something's stirring things up there. And we've tried to come to terms with that maybe, and we've argued about it. But ultimately, Menas is about reciprocity and coming together in joy and harmony and unity. So ultimately, whatever's happening in the five needs to end. Hopefully it has. Maybe this is just the ending and everybody's going to their own corner, maybe. It could also be that. And this guy's just glad it's over. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about how fragile we are in our relationships with one another. That's why it contains Gebo and it contains Vunyo, both forward and reversed, because basically how we relate to each other isn't based in strength, it's based in ego. And that is where the fragility of mankind and the relationships of mankind come into play. When it's all ego based and not spirit based, if spirit's informing the process, then we don't have a problem with it. But I wanted to check the little grimoire here. The individual's part in society, the blending of intuition and rationality, psychic harmony. It's also, but this was the other thing, it's also linked to career potential, because when we can work harmoniously with people, when we're in harmony with others, then we become somebody that someone wants to hire. We become someone people want to work with because we can do that sort of thing. We're not somebody that goes it alone. We're not somebody that is always about our own perspective. We're willing to work in some shared sort of experience with other people. And that's really what Manas is about. So hopefully the 8 and the 5 is just an expression of, working through the clutter, basically, and coming to some kind of decision. We maybe we're being reminded. It's almost like the Page of Pentacles is reminding us of, hey, we're all one, and we got to remember that. So because it's almost like he's just standing there, like it's a beacon, almost, you know, like a beacon of truth, reminding us that in fact, who we are together. We're not separate, and how even though we might see ourselves that way, it's an illusion. um, and then we have the 2, and it's like, I see this and it's like, oh, I hope I can work it out. When you're standing on one foot, hoping everything is just so that it all works out. If everything just is just so, we forget that we can actually manifest that. Well, that's interesting. There's a lot of synchronicity here. A lot of synchronicity. I mean, you've got with Manas, and that's a 2, aligns with the 2 of Pentacles, containing Dagaz, which is a 5 energy, aligning with the 5 of Swords. See, this just doesn't happen in a vacuum. You see, when you look at some of these runes, I just about dropped the book there. When you look at some of these runes, you're going to see other runes contained with them. Laguz is here again. Gebo, Vunyo forward and reversed. Laguz. Did I say Laguz? I think I said Laguz. Kind of, if you turn it that way, you can see Nathis right there. It does this. It's a Norn rune. And so that's kind of like the friction within. So I don't want you to think that this is not, it's like you think in terms of the fire element being our will, so you think of really projective energy. I don't want this to be thought of, even though it's an earth element rune, I don't want you to think of it in terms of a passive element or purely receptive, because it takes work to recognize that we're all one. It takes work. It takes a concerted effort to let go of reaction, let go of ego, and to proceed on with spirit and to recognize that it's the other side of self that we're seeing instead of the other. Here, that's not so clear, but maybe, you know, with the appearance of the Page of Pentacles, it's reminding us that, you know what? We're all one here. I mean, and in reality, this almost resembles Menace, doesn't it, visually? You can almost see that M with an X there, with his legs maybe as part of the legs of the rune. Well, interesting. Yeah, so if you've got a lot coming in on you, if it's resulting into some conflict, just remember what your foundation is in terms of whatever your decision you have to make about it. You may decide that whatever this is, maybe it's at work and maybe you just don't want to deal with it anymore. And so it's time to think about what you need in life, and maybe this is the time to start looking around for something else. That could be what we're juggling here. Maybe it's a decision, but clearly it's a decision concerning our home and our foundation and our physical security and our money and our wealth and all of that. Whatever is keeping us secure, whatever is our foundation in life, that's really what this is about. So if there's a lot of nonsense going on, take a step back and, maybe you need to make a change. Maybe this is the time, or at least to explore it. Sometimes these kinds of experiences on the 8 and on the 5, maybe they're just there to clear out the clutter, and to realign everything. Maybe there's been a lot of pressure. Maybe people have been under pressure. Maybe a big, explosion happened as a result, and everybody got their feelings out, and everybody's going back to their own corners, which is kind of what it feels like in the 5. But something has changed, and maybe you've just gotten rid of the nonsense, and now we're ready to start anew and to start fresh. So I just say that we do it with the understanding that there's more than just us in the equation, and that if it's possible at all to take into account the needs of everybody, then that probably needs to be what happens. Clearly, because whatever happened here, someone wasn't respected, okay? Or maybe a lot of someone's weren't respected. Maybe nobody's listening to one another, okay? And now all of a sudden something happened to change that, something catalytic happened to change it. So, well, cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it then. I'll be sure to jot this one down so that we can, because what we did was we balanced dark with light, and then it was end of one cycle and a new cycle of balanced energy exchange was beginning. But now we've sort of, had another issue here. So maybe we're trying to head in that direction, but we just need to fix a little more. So maybe a little more stuff happened, and now we're heading there. Maybe now we're going to make another decision. So about how we bring all of that into focus and how we create harmony in our lives again. So anyhow, all right. Well, cool. I will see you tomorrow. I do this 4 days a week, so I've got one more day. And so we will talk again tomorrow, and we'll see if we can, draw the same kind of progressive, feel that we had last week. So anyhow, cool. We'll see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself. Be good to one another. Blessed be.